So today what I want to talk about is managing your time when you stay at home, which is often confused with just trying to be super productive and get as much done as possible in as little time as possible. And I really don't think that those mean the same thing. And I think it's important that we separate those two out a little bit. So time management doesn't mean racing through your day and freeing up as much time as possible just so that you can get more and more and more done. It starts with structuring a day that feels ideal to you and then managing your time in a way that allows you to live out that day. So what I really always like to start with when I'm helping people with this is planning out your ideal day, and not in the terms of like I wake up on a beach in Mexico, and not like that. In your normal everyday life, would you want to wake up an hour before your kids and get a lot of work done around the house before they wake up? Would you rather be able to sleep in and then stay up late and watch TV with your husband? All of these are obviously super personal questions. And before we talk any more about time management, you kind of have to structure it around what your goal is. And that goal shouldn't be always to do more and more and more. So right off the bat, you have to start there. So then once you've done that, you kind of have to look at this idea of the phrase time management and think about what does that actually mean? Because it's kind of one of those phrases that doesn't really mean anything. It can make you think of somebody with a really organized planner system and they have highlighted things and categories and Google spreadsheets and all this. And having a complicated way to plan is not time management. Being super productive is not time management. Having no free time is actually terrible time management. So really what it means is taking this time that is given to you and not wasting it. And that doesn't mean not relaxing. It means not wasting. So for an example, wasting your time would be searching for things that you've lost, redoing work that should have already been done, scrambling around and doing things the hard way because you didn't plan ahead when it could have been easier and faster. So time management, what we're really after is not wasting our time, and not wasting our time always in the pursuit of that ideal day that we first thought of. So now that we've gotten that out of the way, I want to talk about some actual practical ways to find more time in your day, because for most of us, that is what's keeping us from our ideal day. We feel like there's way too much to do. There's not enough time to do it. We're always trying to catch up. We're one step behind because of all these things on our plate. So how do we take that practical problem, break it down and solve it so that we can get some of those deeper issues in? So the very first strategy that is super helpful for this is batch working. And you hear about this a lot in the business world, but that doesn't mean that it's not just as valuable, if not more so, if you stay at home. So every time that you switch a task, you've probably heard this, it's kind of an annoying thing that people repeat all the time, but every time you switch a task, your brain loses a lot of its brain power in the act of that switch. So if you are, think of yourself as a computer. If you are trying to edit photos, and then you also have a solitaire game open, and then you're also surfing the internet. Do people say that? You're browsing on the internet, and all three of these things are open. It's going to go slower and slower because your power, your computer brain power, it only has so much. It's not unlimited. So, and if you're switching back and forth, and you have all these things open at once, none of it's really getting done as effectively. So it's a combination of multitasking not being super effective and switching back and forth between tasks. Both of those things make you actually slower. So the answer to that is to batch work. Do one thing, sort of focus on it, knock out a bunch of it at once, and you'll find that you're using your time better. Now, you can do things like meal prep. You can have a laundry day where you're doing all your laundry at once. You can have a cleaning day where you're doing all your cleaning at once. You can find a lot of ideas to do this, but you have to be careful because a lot of them will take an everyday pleasant life and make it into a miserable, miserable chore. So if you do a load of laundry every day and it fits into your routine, you do it first thing in the morning and it doesn't bother you, don't take that non-annoying chore and turn it into this big thing looming over your head, this big task of laundry day, where you have to wake up early, spend all day in the laundry room, do 18 loads of laundry back to back. That is not effective, because remember, our number one goal is making our life pleasant. It's not to be robots and get as much done as possible. So what I like to do is, instead of like looking at my meal plan for the week and saying, okay, how can I just do all this in one day, which would be a horrible day. What are things that really make sense for me to batch? If I know I have to make sandwich bread and we're also having burgers that week and I'm going to make hamburger buns, can I just double that recipe, shape half of it into buns, and freeze them? Yes. If a certain vegetable is in season and I know we're going to have a lot of it, one day if I'm slicing it, can I go ahead and chop up the rest of it, put that in a container, and have that ready for later? So when you're doing batch work, you have to be careful not to make it into its own horrible thing. It has to stay small and pleasant in a way that it's helping you and it's not hurting you. I hope that makes sense. Now, one thing that always works in batches is planning, because by definition, it has to be done in batches. If you're just doing a little bit of it every day, you're not planning anything. So if you can take the next big strategy for time management when you're at home is having a routine. And again, a lot of this is just super common advice, but people don't really stop to think about why it works and how they can make it work for them in a way that doesn't just feel like more work. So the great thing about a routine is when you wake up in the morning, and this is a big problem with people who stay home, me included, sometimes you feel like you have a lot to do, you know that, but you don't really know what to do. So you waste a lot of time kind of milling around, not sure what you should be doing, and it's just a waste. At the end of the day, you feel terrible, like you had this low level of stress and anxiety all day, and yet nothing got accomplished. But if you have routines that structure your day, that problem goes away. So if you know when you wake up, you unload the dishwasher, you start a load of laundry, you take out the trash, and you do one thing to deep clean your kitchen, your brain isn't thinking, what should I do? Oh, is this window dirty enough? Should I clean it? It's just going. And anytime that you're separating out the idea of deciding what to do and actually doing it, your productivity is going to be higher. So the next strategy is eliminating busy work. And busy work is something, if you've ever worked for another person, you probably have experienced where it's just work for the sake of work. Somebody's paying you for an hourly wage. You have to do something because they're paying you, even if it has absolutely no purpose. It seems like a lot of us, when we start staying home, we kind of take this idea into our houses and we start working to work. So something like organizing, or like over-organizing, people who want to go and organize things in a way that are not functional. So labels, personalized things, dividers that are just there to look nice, but not even look nice, but to look busy and look like something happened, but it doesn't actually make your life easier. And then there's things like excessive planning. So I talked about planning being helpful, but some people love planning just for planning. They love the stickers, and they have planner stickers, and they have highlighters, and they have things like that. And like I said, there's this line where, is it a hobby and are you enjoying it? Then that's fine. That's your time to spend however you want. But if you're telling yourself, this is really productive, this is a great use of my time, I don't like doing this, but I'm doing this because it has some type of other value, that's when you need to kind of take a step back and think, is this just busy work or is it something I actually love? And those lines can be blurred. So the best thing that I found to kind of take care of all of these problems, busy work, switching between tasks, wondering what to do, is to have a combination of routines and time blocking. So I will link in the description. I have a printable, it's just super basic, of like rectangles for each time. So it's, times here and days of the week here, whatever. And a lot of times when people do this, they will realize that they're overscheduled, that they have way too much, that when you look at the hours in the day and the tasks they have to do, it just doesn't fit and something has to go. But sometimes, and especially for me, when I do this, I will look at it and I will think, what am I doing all day? I have all of this time and I can see it visually and I can see the time that my tasks take, or at least should take, and yet I'm not getting them done. So why is that? And that's when you have to go back to these problems that we talked about before, busy work, switching tasks, getting distracted, not knowing what you're doing. And everyone is this way. It's nothing to feel bad about. But this doing a time blocking sheet is a big reality check. The very last strategy is one that I never wanted when I was young. You know, you would read this in books and I never wanted to listen to it. And that is to delegate some of your work. I always thought the best version of myself was someone who did everything, never complained, never asked for help. I was going to sew my own tablecloth, and then I was going to serve homemade bread on it, and then I was going to do all the dishes by hand with soap that I made, and then I was going to scrub the floor, and everything was going to be perfect, and I was going to do it all. And the older I've gotten, the more I've realized that that is not only silly, but is actually dangerous, because nobody else, there's no big reward waiting for you for doing all of that. Nobody is going to, at your funeral, say, you know what, she did all of this and she never asked for help. And even if they did, it wouldn't do you any good if they said it. So you have to realize that there's nothing noble about burning yourself out. Nobody cares. Nobody likes you any better for that. And in fact, people will actually not like you for it because it's kind of annoying and it puts you in a bad mood and it makes you feel like a martyr, but nobody asked you to do all these things. And more importantly, nobody asked you to do it all yourself. So there is no reason that you should be spending your time cleaning up after children who are perfectly capable of doing it, making separate meals for children who could make them for themselves, or in other ways, wasting your time catering to people who are perfectly capable of using their own time. It's not doing you any favors. It's not doing them any favors. It is not a good situation. So when you can delegate, do it. And somebody told me once, and this was really good advice, that the youngest child who is capable of doing something should be asked to do it. So if you have a 3-year-old and they are capable of carrying dishes to the sink, they should be the ones doing that. And then your older children, give them tasks where they're going to kind of have to rise to that level. And you'll find that over time, the more children you have, the easier your life gets, and things will get better and better for you over time. So I hope that helped. I know it was a little bit weird. And now, like I said, I'll leave a link to that time blocking printable, which I think will be helpful. But just remember, your goal is not to do as much as possible for as long as possible. It's to spend your days in a way that you want to, in a way that makes you happy, not to prove anything to anybody else. And that is the ultimate objective of managing your time. And that's it.